Here we go. If we don't go quick, someone will complain that it's at 0 and we haven't started yet.
Perfectly timed. Nailed it.
Well, people are so excited. They're so excited to talk about stolen pets and sleeping on the job and China being China and
China being China.
And so much
China
more.
being China.
Maybe Joe Biden shaking a non-existent person's hand. That's the end of that story.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
there isn't much more.
Guys, we if you haven't tuned in a while, we're changing things up. We were starting off with TILs, but today we're mixing it up, and we're gonna.
You know what though?
Start it off.
I'm gonna have to steal yours because I didn't put any. That's just the
you
one
don't have
thing
any showers?
I didn't put anything in here.
Ah, snap! No worries. That's okay. We only have 3 showers for you guys tonight. Shower thoughts.
It's okay.
So that's all right.
I even had some marked,
then...
but I'd have to go find them. Not gonna happen.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. All right, guys. I'm gonna start us off. And this is actually a really fascinating thought. Maybe some insects that are really small, maybe they can feel some bacteria crawling on them, just as we feel little bugs crawling on us.
And it's like when they're on
think of like a gnat or like an aphid or something like that, you know? That's a crazy thought.
It is weird to think. It's weird to think that their nerves would be that much smaller. Maybe they don't have them. I don't know. I like to think they don't. Otherwise, I guess I wouldn't feel bad about stepping on them. I actually read one today. I might butcher this. This is totally from memory, but it blew my mind. Someone thought of this. I did not. They said that this is a perfect shower thought, right? Is that if a toy in Toy Story died,
love it,
the child would never know, and the toys would be forced to watch them play with the corpses of their friends.
That's deep. That's a good one. But also, because oftentimes on Toy Story, you saw certain toys lose body parts, it makes me wonder, could the toy actually ever die? Like, would it, if the head was taken off, it'd probably just be a talking head, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But
Deep
still
thought.
think about it. I mean...
But think about it. All right. You want to read my next shower?
Well, I just did one. I just did one from memory. So you got it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
that was one I meant to write down, but I thought of it.
This is kind of a cool one. This is kind of cool. If you've been alive for 24 years, you've already experienced 10% of the U.S. history.
10%. Oh, yeah.
How cool is that? That's nuts. That's bananas. That's so crazy how short our country has been a country.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild, like even the oldest of countries that are established. I mean, you could say like maybe Rome, but it wasn't, I mean, when did it like kind of fell and came back? Like, and it's not really Rome anymore. It's
right.
So
right. Like the oldest, so like what's
the oldest established country?
Ooh, I'm going to look that up right now.
It's not, I feel like it's not that long ago. I mean, we have places that are there, but it's like they're different countries now, right?
Okay. So, well, I mean, Egypt.
Yeah, but I mean, even that has changed. Like
thousands and thousands.
Right.
Well, it's always been a country, though. It might have been taken
right, but what's
over
a country?
by
I'm talking about like
governments.
different like leadership. Like when I think of a country, I think it's got a
That's
style
never
of
been
leadership.
conquered.
It hasn't changed the way that it is. Like if the United States would say like same thing, but it changed. Say it changed to like a monarchy or something. I'd be like, it's kind of a different country at that point. You might call it the same thing, but.
Well, so it's saying Egypt as the longest, but then it says Syria, Vietnam. They think Vietnam has been one of the longest established countries.
Well, how long is that?
Armenia, a long time,
Okay.
Since 2800 BCE.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a decent time. China's
I don't
been
really
around.
count them as a country.
Since...
They're just torturers. It's like a really,
Not
a really big
They've
concentration.
had highs and lows. They've had highs and lows. China was, they think, around since 2070 BCE. So I mean, it is the amount of time that and culture and history those countries have is just staggering compared to our country, which is shocking to be able to say someone that's been around for 24 years has lived 10% of our country's history.
True.
That's
things have changed a lot in that time too.
Boggling.
That's what's crazy.
Right.
Is if you go and look at some of those countries that are older, that like technologically and how we travel, how we communicate and everything, not a lot changed for quite a while. And like this last, couple 100 years, it's a staggering difference between when we got here and now. Like you and I could just decide tomorrow, hey, let's drive to the East Coast, and there's little to no threat, right?
Okay. I'm going to give you guys an example of how we all know this to be true, but how crazy technology has changed in such a short period of time. When I think I was probably in middle school, I want to say, and I was riding in a car, and you were in the car, John Pinch was in the car, and I think Joe was in the car, and maybe your brother. I can't recall for sure. Mm-hmm. We were riding in the car, and the iPod had just come out, and they were just talking about
Not the iPod Touch, kids.
No, like the wheel. And they were releasing information that it was going to be 1 gig. And I remember you specifically saying, why would anybody, or like something along like, nobody would ever need 1 gig of music. Like, that's just like insane. It's mind boggling.
Oh, at the time, and music wasn't that big digitally. I mean, it's gotten quite large now because they're like, well, we have storage space, right? But back then, the difference between what a digital song was stored then was like 1 to 3 megabytes versus today, one's probably between 50 and 100 sometimes. Just depends on the quality of it. So if that was the case back then, I wouldn't have said the same thing. But
well, and the concept of digital stored music wasn't even really a thing. Like, that was brand new, right?
It was on a computer. It just wasn't for very many people. I mean, at that point, I had done it, but like carrying it around, it's like I didn't even have a gig on my computer. I'm like, well, so why would I even carry a gig?
It was all
at the time.
LimeWire, man.
But then I would say the same thing now. I would say, why does anyone need 512 gigabytes on their phone? Yet you can go get it. But I do know in the future that could all change.
And a lot of apps take more storage now too.
Yeah.
Compared to the past.
But the camera and everything just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So.
Truth. Okay, last shower thought that we have for you guys here.
Yep. You read it. It's yours.
And it's kind of fun. Gaming is essentially someone's imagination that you can interact with. So you're basically playing with somebody's imagination, which is true of most books or fantasy books, I guess, right? Which is true of most fantasy books.
Well, that's why they said historically that books, a lot of places like Germany, even parts of China through history and everything, have been so fearful of books, is because the way that it is allows it basically, you don't get the same interaction as you do with, like, say, the news or whatever. You hear it and you're just like taking it in, but that actually passes through and your imagination has to imagine it. And they're terrified if there are books with ideas like 1984, things like that really make people sit and think about, how do these different things affect me day to day?
Yeah.
And so
even the Roman Catholic Church, right?
Right.
Like the Roman Catholic Church, when there was the printing press for the Bible, and then they didn't require a priest to depend on interpretations because it was in a different language all of a sudden. Like, that there's power in...
I don't know what you're talking about there, but whatevs.
Power and information. It didn't have to do with imagination, I guess. But I was just thinking about books, the power of reading. But yeah, just rabbit trail there, I guess. So, what do you got going on, man? What's been going on this week?
Dude,
I got some interesting things.
So here's the first thing that kind of weirded me out this week. So for those of you who don't know, we've talked about Julian Assange here before. Julian Assange kind of he did start WikiLeaks, right? He was one of the founding. Yeah, I was trying to give a rundown of someone was asking me, like, what's the deal with, like, him, right? And this doesn't really have to do with him, but it kind of has to do with the history of WikiLeaks, because that's what I want to chat about for a second, is that he was here, basically. Oh, he was allowed in the United States. He's not from here. But one of the things that he was known for and blamed of was releasing information that was dangerous to operatives of the United States, so spy ops and stuff like that. And he had contacted at the time one of the, I think it was the Clinton administration, or at least their team or whatever, saying that like there's this stuff that went on that you know about, I know about, and everyone needs to hear about it. We have the information and we do not want to release the information unredacted, but somebody has it and they're probably going to. And they were doing it as a warning, and they got blamed for it because it did get released and said that they were a threat. And so now he's basically at large from the United States and not allowed back in, yada, yada, yada. If you've seen anything from him, the guy really just wants peace in the world, and he believes in the truth and that everyone should have the truth to do with what they decide to do with. I say all that to say, this week, the Hunter Biden information that some people still think has been debunked, it is not. The laptop information has now all been fully handed over to WikiLeaks to go through an index, and they are doing so and removing the stuff like child porn. If you guys don't know, that was on there. Images of things that Hunter Biden did with his niece are on there. And so they're not legal to post on the internet. They shouldn't be legal. They're removing those, and they're redacting.
So you could say allegedly because you haven't seen this specifically, right?
I know that there's enough evidence and enough people who have tried to turn it back over saying this is what's on there. I don't think it's alleged. I think it is, and nobody wants to touch it because it's so bad. And that's kind of with that information. It's like, I don't want to see it. Like, I don't want to know. I don't. We know from some videos that leaked for sure that went on, and some other emails that were leaked that his dad tried to hide it and keep it from getting out because it would have harmed the Obama administration. Anyway, WikiLeaks has all of it, and they're cataloging it, indexing it to make it available to everybody now.
How did WikiLeaks get it?
They were finally just given the hard drive. There was a couple different copies that were made when it was originally tried to be handed to the FBI, because the guy who worked on the laptop, he didn't know what it was, but Hunter would never come pick it up. And so he had fixed it and like got into it and was like, shoot, I can't legally have, if I get caught with this, I will get taken in for child porn. So he tried to take it to the FBI and say, I can't have this. I don't want to be blamed for this. Please take it. Please take it. And they wouldn't. So
see, I haven't heard, I've heard more of the rumors of it, of the concern towards the financial
that's on there.
Records
that's on there too. I've
dealings
read
with
those
China.
It was
the dealings
Ukraine,
with China
actually, and China. Somewhat.
No.
That was
specifically China. Actually,
that was more recent
Chinese
stuff.
company.
But the laptop stuff was older emails, and it dealt with the Ukraine oil stuff that his dad was doing with him in Ukraine.
Well, one of the articles that I read out of the New York Post specifically went into details about the Chinese company and emails that were in it included, pertaining to. There was one reference where it said there was going to be a correspondence between Hunter and this individual with this Chinese corporation, and it said there's going to be they said, we propose that there's an equity split, and 20 for H, which we're assuming would be Hunter, right, and then 10 for
the big man.
10 held by H for the big guy.
Yes, and there's texts too.
So
that's where this guy had
be,
this guy, because it was an Apple computer. It had his texts on it from iCloud, and they referred to him as the big man.
Yeah, that type of stuff I think would be the concerning stuff for Biden in particular. If that's
they started
true.
To put this information out to take the heat off of the Swiss data forensics team that's been working on the data to index it and everything and get it ready to post, because the WikiLeaks has said this needs to be public. Everyone in the world needs to know what this family has done. They're going to remove the things that shouldn't be available to the public.
So are you saying it's a Swiss company or that's working for or with
There was
WikiLeaks?
A Swiss company working on it as well. Now WikiLeaks has it, and they're getting ready to index it.
Interesting. Yeah, well, time will tell once we get. I did see a congressional report from I think it was actually on CNN.
Yeah. Some of the major ones that denied it a while back and said it was Russia collusion have now started saying the Hunter Biden laptop exists.
Well, yes, that exists, but that there's potentially incriminating information on there.
Some of the emails are out.
The
You can go read them.
Well,
But
there's issues with
thousands of them.
the Democrats rejecting attempts to upload the information into congressional records.
Yes.
And so that's interesting. If it's required for them to do so, but they're rejecting it, then obviously, there's probably some type of smoke.
Well,
or there's probably some type of fire.
Yeah, and that's also what was kind of strange about it. Oh shoot, I didn't ever make the YouTube one go live. That was my fault. We're just not going to make it go live now. We'll just upload it later to there.
Yeah, sorry, YouTube.
YouTube has this weird thing where you have to do it manually, and if I don't have the page up, it just doesn't happen. So what I was going to say is it was like 6-8 months ago, Rudy Giuliani, who, love him or hate him, he was representing Trump. His house was raided by the FBI. He had a copy of the Hunter Biden laptop hard drive in his apartment, and they were required by the warrant to take any electronic devices. So they took his iPad, his computer, his phone, and he actually said, "Hey, I've got Hunter Biden's hard drive over here in a backup. You probably should take that too. I'm not going to be caught not telling you it's here." And they said, no, we're not taking that. We can't. And they wouldn't take it.
Interesting.
Even though their warrant said you have to take all electronic items.
Yeah. So. I don't know what the details are behind that whole situation, but it will be fascinating to see when it plays out, if some information gets more released. Looks like potentially
I'm not going to hold my breath, but there's a bunch of pedophiles in that family.
The biggest, allegedly.
Nope.
The biggest crazy thing that I think was going on this week is, I think it's pretty wild. Well, there's several crazy things, but one thing I wanted to allude into, we've all heard about, hopefully most of us, about Elon Musk attempting to buy Twitter, right?
Right.
This is a pretty widely reported on subject. And it's fascinating because recently there's been tweets from the former CEO, Jack Dorsey, who not endorsing Elon Musk, like they're not buddies really,
right?
But information, a tweet that came out from Jack Dorsey basically saying one of the main issues, what did he say? He said, the board has always been a barrier or toxic for the company. So essentially, I'll find it and read it to you.
I think that dude struggled, and that's why he stepped down. Like he struggled to make it what it was. I do think
he struggled. He wanted.
I do think he was part of the problem as well. I'm not going to take away all blame from him. I think he could have, for sure.
He talked about, there has been conversations in different podcasts that I've heard him on. He has certain things that he can't disclose, but he did want there to be more areas of, like editing button. He did want there to be an edit button.
Had nothing to do with it. What had to do with
it. Well, no. Like there was things he wanted. Like he wanted the edit button. He did want certain levels of autonomy for speech, but he didn't have the power individually.
Right.
Like,
and which I think is why Elon said, in order to have a true free speech platform, it must be private. And I respect one thing that he did say is he said it in an interview. I'm just paraphrasing. It's one of the links that I have, but I don't want to go and like watch the video to hear him, but I'll just paraphrase. He just basically said, I think this is what needs to happen. And in a advanced democracy, we need a space where people are broadly able to speak about what they want to speak about. Not saying like you should be able to say anything, because there's definitely things that are illegal to say. It's illegal to
that's
what
Elon Musk says. He says he wants it to be within the bounds of the law.
Right. And so, but he's saying like that's required. And he specifically, the thing that I was like, oh, okay, so he means it, is he said this isn't for monetary gain. Like the economics are not his drive in this. He truly believes it's something that needs to happen for this world.
So this is what Jack Dorsey said. He said, he was responding to somebody that had alluded to, I bet it's probably the board that's been causing the financial issues and the policy issues with Twitter. Jack Dorsey responded and said, there's always been difficulties, plots and coups with the board. And then he said, it's constantly been the dysfunction of the company. So and this was actually fascinating too. I was listening to or reading tweets from Elon Musk about the financial, like the board's responsibility is to make financial good decisions for the company.
Right.
And it was interesting because the majority of the board members have some of the lowest levels of interest in the company, like financial interest in the company. And he was saying, if you guys choose not to do a financial boon, something that's beneficial for the company, then you're in breach of what your responsibilities are as the board.
Right.
Which, if Elon was to buy them out, it would be, it was like he offered, I think, $10 billion more than what the company was valued at.
Yeah, he offered $54.20 per share. It's interesting what people are saying too. It's kind of like, are you guys saying the quiet part out loud here? Because there was some news anchors that like were losing their freaking minds. They were like, one lady actually went so far as to say, we can't let this guy control what people think. That's our job. Like, specifically, she said that. I'm like, whoa, I thought it was your job to deliver information and for us to decide what to do. But she literally said, it's our job to tell people what to think. And
interesting.
And so this would be a direct competition to that if he allowed people to just talk freely.
Yeah. Well, I think he did make some good points. Elon Musk, I heard him talking about this as well. And he was saying that there are software issues that are rampant within Twitter that he would like to improve. He admits that he doesn't have the answer to everything. But there are a significant number of bots that just flood comments.
Oh, for certain.
And bots, but also outside government influence that try to push conversations one way or the other to incite frustrating debates that aren't really debates, but really more just stoking a fire. So he has some, I think, room to improve the program as well still, but he doesn't want to. He says he's not doing this for a financial gain, even though he thinks he can.
He also did say that he was, and this is what was interesting, is people are like, well, it can't be fully private. He said that he would endeavor to keep as many shareholders in a privatized Twitter as allowed by law, which is interesting because he wants other people to have a financial interest in it, but he doesn't want it to be a public company.
Because then you have to deal with the board.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I don't know. Do you have to have a board if it's a public company? Maybe. I don't actually know.
I would imagine it's how you're legally set up. I don't, but that's not my
also, guys, if you hear anything that we're saying that you don't agree with, put it in the comments. Let us know. Also, if there's things that you correct us on, feel free to let us know as well.
Yeah, it was $43 billion, but that's including, I think, the 10% that he owns already, which is interesting because he said if they don't take his offer,
or like 9,
that number one, he did say there was a plan B if this didn't work.
Right.
I actually think he didn't expect this to work, and what Twitter did, which was interesting, because if you were in it for the shareholders, which you should be in a public company, right? Everyone benefits, right? They would have stood to make a lot of money off of the sale. And the only way to offset that is to come up with some way to make it seem like you have a better option than selling. And that's what they did, was they basically like kind of flooded the market with available shares, which kind of like, I think they're trying to cause like a stock split or something.
Right. I think that's what I heard too.
And it's just weird. It's definitely strange that they're doing that. It just shows, I think, how much the control matters more than the money to them. And that to me is a little bit more scary.
That if you look at the fruit of his labor thus far, it is impressive how he has been able to rally his companies and keep them afloat so well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's highs and lows. However, Tesla's the number one EV company in the world. And Boring Company hasn't had as much press, but it's still functioning. And then SpaceX has been one of the main carriers for our government and for even NASA for certain space missions per se. Yeah, so I mean, he's definitely been successful. So his ability and success in Twitter would be, I think, likely. However, gosh, how thin can you spread yourself, man? I don't know.
Well, I think he's probably just got people that he trusts. If he just had like a few main rules, I mean, going based off of what he said, the strongest quote and the reason why he wanted is that he said, "My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization." That is, if that's his rule, the rest of it is like you said, like you fix bots and whatever. I think there's two sides of the coin to think about. The people that want the control of thought are scared of what actual people are saying, even if it's right or wrong. They don't want it. They're so scared of it. Yet they're not fixing the bots.
Or
it's
maybe
still a problem.
it's like on the conservative Republican side and on the Democratic side. I think that there's concern of losing influence over people, right?
But if he's like
and
everything
no,
except for,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think potentially like that would maybe create a barrier for influencing individuals.
Yeah, I think
by giving a voice, right?
Yes.
And so it might muddy the water in some respects, but I think also it would.
I think that's a lot less dangerous than silencing actual people.
I think that there is a good precedence for creating freedom of speech in a lot of ways.
And I think part of his thing is he wouldn't filter it in other countries. Because that was his
exactly like China.
China, saying. But then there was the response that he had to the what was some prince, as a Saudi prince, that's what it was. He commented back to him because they said we're a big shareholder and we do not with this, and he said that's interesting. Just two questions, if I may. How much of Twitter does the kingdom own directly and indirectly, and what are the kingdom's views on journalistic freedom of speech?
Right.
And
hashtag we just killed a journalist 5 years ago.
Hashtag Mike
chopped him into
Mike
pieces.
drop. Hashtag we're not going to filter anymore in your country. Sorry.
Well, so the country could still, ban or block those, but then they have, VPN, I guess, but still countries still could block it. And actually, this is what's interesting though. I'm not totally sure how much Elon is willing to fight other countries in those areas, because this is another article that I posted about with a recent change, or not that recent, but reports come out of Shanghai, the Tesla factory. And apparently they're in the process of forcing employees to sleep at work.
So, I'm curious why,
So I don't know if it's out of purpose of increasing manufacturing, but they're saying that it's because of, I think part of it is because of the Chinese lockdowns that's been going on, right?
Yeah,
I think that maybe they're concerned that they would, well, they're desperate to make up, but also maybe they're concerned that there's a potential for operations being further backed out if their employees get locked in their homes.
No, hang on. Yes, so the answer is in the first paragraph on this article. It says employees at Tesla's Shanghai factory are reportedly being forced to live at the work following a 3-week shutdown due to the recent outbreak of COVID-19 cases in China. The company will handle sleeping bags. So they're trying to keep, instead of sending them home to get stuck and get, I mean, honestly, it's probably, if I'm being real, from the videos I've seen, it might be better to sleep at Tesla than go back home.
Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, so that factory, the Shanghai factory, produces a little bit less than 2,000 cars a day, which is under the production amount that they had reportedly expected or planned for. But still, 2,000 Teslas a day seems like a decent grip of cars. But when you have a country of how many billion? 2 billion?
Too many billion?
Is it 2 billion?
I think it's 2.5. It's pretty big. It's almost as big as the United States.
1.4 billion right now.
I was off by $1 billion.
and actually 1.38 billion in India. So India is close to surpassing China in population right now. Huh. I did not know that. Okay, so what do you think? So we know China and India are the two most populated countries. What do you think the third most populated country in the world is?
I don't know. I don't know.
This is interesting to me. It's the United States.
Is it really?
It is the third most populated.
That's kind of funny. That's a big
in
gap.
the world. Is the United States? Yeah. So it goes the United States at 3.3 million, and then underneath the United States, number 4. Would not have guessed these. Would not have guessed these. Number 4, Indonesia, 273 million. Pakistan, number 5. Pakistan, number 5? Never would have guessed Pakistan as number 5. Who would have guessed Pakistan out there? Nobody.
Nobody would have guessed Pakistan. Let me tell you who would. None of you.
Let me tell you guys something. None of you. And then Brazil. Oh, I could see Brazil. Brazil's huge. Brazil's number 6. And then Nigeria, 7. Russia's only 9. No kidding. Russia's only 9 right now.
Which is crazy because it's like you look at a map. You know, it's like when wars break out, you kind of look at maps. You're like, my goodness, Russia is... That's a big landmass. Now, granted, most of it's completely pointless and useless and just ice balls. But like, still, it's a big landmass.
Okay. Yeah, this is interesting.
So
Egypt is significantly higher than even like Germany.
Wow.
Japan's number 11, guys. Japan's number 11. Mexico's 10. Crazy. Facts, guys. Facts.
So, I mean, that kind of brings us to this, like, you and I were chatting about this today a little bit in text. Them, like, the whole rest of the world is pretty much like, we need to get back, like, we need to start doing stuff, and then we got this, and Tesla saying, come sleep here so that you don't go home and get stuck and not be able to make cars. And then, like, China just decided we're gonna go the whole other direction and start locking things down again. And not only that, but
pretty crazy.
People stuck in their homes and not able to get food and being ripped away and taken to concentration camps because they're sick, which seems like kind of counterintuitive to me. But then like having their pets taken and thrown in bags and just laid on the side of the street. And I feel like that is like, we've talked about China a lot on here, and not the Chinese people, because the people are much different than the government, but this seems like even low for them, in my opinion, and it's very scary.
Well, I have an article. If you can pull it up, it's my second one, and it's actually it's a CNN article, and it's a video. And if you want to skip to like maybe like a minute,
I don't have sound. That's kind of the problem.
Oh, you don't have the sound? Ah, shoot. Okay. So, anyways, it's a video, and it shows like the people. They're kind of at a risk of sparking a crisis in their country, I think, because their lockdowns are causing significant strain on the population for even food. Like they can't go out and get food. They're getting locked in their places. And the government is trying to provide in some cases, but it's not sufficient.
Well, it's so many people like crammed in, and
yeah, right.
It's like, why? Okay, at this point, say even 1,000 people died of C-19 a day. If all these people are starving, you gotta weigh risk reward here, right? Like, you don't.
Yeah,
you don't lock away.
Look at the lethality of the situation.
You lock away everybody, and start starving everybody, because it was like.
Well, it's interesting.
Like in that last article, it was saying like there was like 3 deaths in Shanghai. I'm like, okay, so we should starve people, like.
It's interesting, yeah. Like the background, like what is going on in the background that we don't know about. But if you look at even in the US, like today, the COVID-19 is on a significant rise in the United States right now, but the lethality of it's very manageable, right? Like we're having basically also just for anybody that lives locally, influenza is ticking up right now.
Oh, I
I
know.
had the most
It's gone
positive
through.
influenza
It's been in my
cases.
house.
Yeah, I had the most influenza type A cases that I've had in the past 3 years in one day this past week. So look out there, guys. Influenza type A. Get your Tylenol. Get your hydration in. Um, but what was I saying? So the U.S. just lifted today travel bans to
I thought
any
it got
country.
extended. Oh, travel ban. Yeah,
No,
but they were supposed to
there
lift
are
the
travel
masks
warnings.
today on airplanes, and they decided, we're too
No, they
scared.
did. They lifted it.
They said
It's
the other
still
day
being.
they
It was
extended it.
a judge in Florida.
Decided we're done.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm
And
glad for
so
that.
that's not required. TSA is not enforcing it. But you still can, obviously, if you feel the need to. That's fine. But the interesting approach, the difference between what's happening in the U.S. and in China right now, obviously dramatic. But it's fascinating, and really sad. China's been through a lot of rough stuff, man. Their people, especially. Did you see what Google did in Russia?
No, but I'm scared. I'm scared it's not good.
It's not it's good for. I think it's a good move by Google.
Okay, let's
Um,
talk about it.
so Google, and I didn't know this. Apparently, if you were to look on their maps, on Google Maps, on the satellite portion, you would see when it's over certain sensitive areas,
You're right.
it blurs it out.
Like Area
And it
51, it's
pixelates
really
it.
bothersome. I want
Mm-hmm.
to see it.
But Google just recently updated their approach to any maps over Russia,
Oh,
and it provides high detail images now of highly sensitive Russia military sites. So
it's
now, if
interesting.
you want, you can see, nuclear reserve stations. You can see certain. Excuse me. Gosh, this cough's annoying. Yeah, you can see certain sensitive military sites throughout Russia now. And so Google and Russia basically said, hey, warned them, said, hey, you need to not show this. This is sensitive information. And Google's just not allowing it. They're saying, hey, we're going to ban any and all advertisements for Russia users. And we're still until, the invasion of Ukraine is ceased. It's like, good for Google. I'll take that.
They probably should send in a bunch of their little cars too, to like film stuff going on.
Can you imagine Google, like a fleet of Google, and you could see like dun, da, da, da,
Google Maps
da,
tanks.
da, 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 da.
We're
Yeah,
oh,
that's
I
hilarious.
mean, you
Yeah,
probably get hazard pay for that. I'm just guessing.
I think Russia's probably threatening Google not to join NATO, though. Technically,
Can you imagine? They're like, "Could you please not join NATO?" Yeah.
they're threatening everybody else not to join NATO. Wow! Shoot!
Yes.
Snap! Crack! Pop!
It makes me very thankful that we live in the country that we do. With the problems that we have, we are very blessed to be in a place.
Yes, very much so.
Where
very much
we can
so.
laugh at each other online while other people get bored at us, and talk about things that
or get mad.
Yeah,
and that's okay. And it's good that they can get mad.
Yeah,
love
it. Doesn't.
I support them.
It doesn't bother me. I'll talk about it still. I don't like. It's just. I think it's important. I think, and I think that I don't know who it was that was saying like there was someone I was listening to that wasn't from the United States, but was saying how appreciative they are of the way that our free speech is, even as limited as they've tried to make it in the past few years, because it, to them in their mind, is the last bastion of hope, kind of for the world in these areas that struggle with freedoms, because someone's actually able to talk about it. Like it's that, and those countries do everything they can. And I think that there's some of the influence that try to make it so that we can't in our own country, because it's so dangerous to those ideas. that we can actually sit and talk about it and talk about how people should be treated better.
It really makes me wonder, someone that, gets a lot of joy out of new experiences and seeing new places, new sites. It makes me wonder how difficult in the future traveling to certain locations will become. And
what they
I
will
hope
be.
I hope.
I mean, they might be different countries. I mean,
Right.
think
Yeah.
about. I mean, think about
Sure.
like if Russia keeps this up, and it becomes a big ordeal, and they are taken over and reestablished. I mean, or we're talking like kind of
Oh,
pie in the
like
sky, but any one of those
Mhm.
countries, and it became a free country where there was no more like Putin's ruling it, and it was like they set up their own democracy or republic or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of people. Someone might be
It
thinking
could go.
like,
It
"Oh,
could
that's
go
not even
good.
possible." Like, yeah, well, people didn't think it was possible a few hundred years ago when we came here. For
Sure.
for us to split from Britain's power over telling us
Mhm.
what religion we should have and that we should fight wars in a certain way and that we should pay taxes to them but have no representation. Like, you think about it, like that shouldn't have happened either.
Stuff changes. In summary, stuff changes
Yeah, and it's well.
quickly.
What's interesting too is like if you look through history, we're kind of at that point, and now we've got we've got different types of communication, travel, the ways that we can fight, ways that we can choose to not fight, ways that we have different things at our disposal, but we are kind of at that bubble in our economics and society, and even just time that countries have been around that things in our lifetime, in the end of our lifetimes, could shift like they have in the past. We're kind of at that culminating point or near it. If not
Mhm.
our lifetime, it could be, in the next 50 to 100 years. Um, so it's done it
We'll
before.
have to
It's
see.
bound to do it
It's
again.
crazy. We'll see what countries do what and when. On that
Probably
light note,
Soros, the United States of Soros. Somehow he
no, I think
continues
it's going to
living.
be, yeah, was it DeSantos? This is going to be DeSantos taking over the world.
DeSantis.
DeSantos.
That guy is so interesting. I think he's
Very.
very firm, but at the same time he doesn't necessarily come across as mean. It's just like, "Oh, I feel bad now."
Well,
Like
I think he's going to be a primary candidate for the Republican side over Trump. I do, because I think,
maybe
obviously, who knows? Who knows?
he's not
But
that
I don't,
old.
I
I mean,
think,
he could just continue in Florida for another term and then do it.
yeah.
Like,
I
I don't
think
know. I wouldn't be against
the
it.
golden showdown, I think the smartest thing the Democrats could do would be get Tulsi Gabbard back on their primary,
It
get
won't.
them back on
She's
their
not
docket.
Democrat. She's not the Democrat face today. That's the problem. She could
Well, she's still, I'm not sure. I think she might still be
she could be
signed
registered that,
under
but
the
she's not.
registered Democrat.
She's too much of a free thinker, and she can't be controlled, and they don't like that.
Let me see. No, she still identifies as a Democratic Party. I would be head over heels excited for her. And well, she's only 41. Actually, no, it's 35 to be president.
Yeah, it's 35.
35. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
I don't think she'd fit it, man. I think she's got too many ideas that are not within their camp these days. And
Well,
that's,
I
I
think
mean,
that they might have to adjust,
they would
right?
have to adjust, but they've let kind of some fanatics yank them pretty far to the left. Um,
Paul
so
Steven thinks that DeSantis will be a VP for Trump, and then take over
So
after Trump
here's
leaves
the
office.
problem with DeSantis being VP for Trump, because I've thought that too. And if it happened, whatever. But they are both very dominating personalities. I don't think that they would work well together in those roles.
Could they work well together, or could they work
I think
together?
they could.
Basically,
I
is
think
the
anyone
question.
could. I don't think they would. I think there's honestly some things that DeSantis holds to that is in my mind more like conservative towards, and I'm not saying conservative in the sense of Republican, I'm saying conservative in the sense of what the word means, which is conserving rights of people. That I would more agree with than Trump. There was some things I didn't agree with him, for sure. But I could say that about anybody. So I mean, if I could throw something in a basket, I would say I would love it if DeSantis runs. I kind of think he's going to stay in Florida for another term, though.
Also, let's be real. The role of VP is not a very, like, most
It's
people
not.
that are the head governor of a state like Florida, like a pretty powerful state, they are not usually going to be excited to be a VP under anybody.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a token place
I wish
role.
it
Like you're not
wasn't.
really
Yeah, I wish it wasn't this
having
way.
much
But
authority.
from everything that I've read and kind of listened to, those two roles don't play in harmony as much as I wish.
In
As much as I wish they
lifetime,
would.
and maybe they have in the past,
I
but in
think they
my
have in the
lifetime, no
past.
matter what party, which side, it doesn't seem like the VP role has been very extensive. Maybe there's stuff
they're the head of the
up.
Senate. So right now, technically, if she wasn't such a weirdo, right now would be a really good time to be the VP because you are the tiebreaker. But nobody likes our current VP, including anybody in there and anybody in the presidency. I mean, go through and look at when she was trying to be the nominee for president. She was literally the least liked and amongst all the Democrats. It's so that would be a good time to be it because you're the tiebreaker. But you got to have a person in there that's actually able to be likable. I don't think she's pulled that off. So, at least from everything I've seen.
Well, guys, we covered every important topic from
in the world,
in the entire world. But we're gonna end the night with some TILs. I have two. Jordan, I don't think you have any.
I have none.
So let's each take one.
Actually, wait. Hang on. Give me 3 seconds. I swear that I marked one. Sometimes I do this when I see them. I'm like, I'm going to mark this because
Mark away, brother.
but then I have to remember to put them into my notes, and that's the part that didn't happen. Let me see. Nope. I didn't.
No, that's right. All right. I'll do the first one. You do the second one. Today I learned that the founder of Safeway supermarkets was a preacher who felt that credit purchases were evil and named his cash-only stores to promote the safe way to shop. I can only imagine now he's rolling in his grave because credit cards are used probably for a vast majority of the purchases in Safeway.
Debit cards are, I think, more predominantly than anything in there.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure.
I'm not saying that they don't, but I would argue it's probably mostly debit cards or Oregon Trail cards, which is someone else's credit card.
So, it could be. Well, regardless, so credit was the thing that he didn't like, right?
Well, like, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I would say probably not a great idea to go into debt to buy food. Probably not do that. I mean, if you have to, you have to.
It's like,
but like,
if you have to, right? Because that's like the most essential thing.
Right, yeah. But I would say that's probably a good time to sit down with somebody and plan out a better plan than that, right? Get some help and assistance in that. But it is a digital currency now, pretty much, and that's what debit cards are. It's just
right. Yeah. Very few.
And people could argue, is it safer with cash? Who knows? Like, maybe for some people, maybe not for others. People are forgetful. Maybe they leave all of it in there. I had a kid that left like $100 in a wallet on a shelf in Safeway once. Wasn't very safe.
Oh boy.
They got it back, but anyway,
crazy.
Yeah. Today I learned, literally, because I'm reading this right now, the most destructive single air attack in human history was the napalm bombing of Tokyo. What the? On the night of the 10th of March, 1945, that killed around 100,000 civilians in about 3 hours. That is a terrible way to go.
Crazy. And that was far more of a destructive attack than in that short period of time.
Right.
Than even the
Hiroshima bomb.
Yeah, the A-bombs.
Yeah, I think the thing about the A-bombs is, I mean, now this would be, I think, more horrifying, But the fact of something that big going off, you just have to step back and go, oh crap, what have we done? Like,
oh, totally. One bomb did this.
Yeah, like, oh, let's rethink what we're doing here, guys.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. That's our Testing Normal episode 135. We
had
appreciate
lots
y'all
of issues
coming in.
Jordan forgot notes. Jordan forgot to hit live on YouTube. So hopefully next time.
No worries.
I don't do
well,
that.
I'm going to go watch the new Batman, guys. Ooh. Pretty excited about that.
Sounds good.
And maybe eat some snacks. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Something crazy. No crazy evening.
Do you have to get up? Do you have to get up early?
Snacks? No.
Perfect.
I do not. I know. I'm excited.
You've been working a lot lately, so.
Yes, and I actually these next 2 weeks I have a less busy schedule than I have had, so I'm excited about that.
It's exciting.
Good stuff.
Always exciting. Cool.
All right, guys. Good night. Stay classy.
Good night, Paul.
Appreciate y'all.
Thanks for stopping by.
Bye, Paul.
And thanks for everyone who listened. We love you.
Thanks for the listeners. We'll tune in next Monday.
Yep. See you guys. Bye.